right, folks, I'm going to introduce an awesome informed choice leader here, Bob Runnells, all the way up from Vancouver. Let's hear for Bob.
Thanks, Victoria. Seattle Truth Network, fierce warrior hanging out over the overpasses in Seattle throughout the pandemic, and tireless. Almost as tireless as Bill Osmondson is at the Board of Health. And Gerald for writing our newsletter. Yeah, the good shout out to that. So I can thank Gerald doing our diligent weekly newsletter, and he always finds an interesting twist and angle for us to report on. So I really appreciate Gerald on that. Where'd Joe go? Is he lying? Is he back there reporting? He's reporting. Thank you. And so I have to thank my wife because she has, persevered through a lot of different rallies over the last 7 years. We were counting. In 7 years ago this month, I am standing where RFK Jr. stood and told the state there's something wrong with the vaccine program. And so where is it? Yeah, let's have a round of... Could you have imagined the situation we're in now where we actually have a voice in the federal government that is trying to revise vaccine policy? And so that's how I got in this. I was poked by the state mandates and vaccination for kids and almost getting excluded out of the schools for something that was so mild and there was no issue. And they, back in 2019, they announced a statewide emergency for measles under Governor Inslee. So that really it's like something's wrong here. 75 cases of measles, statewide emergency for a childhood disease. So that really woke me up. We had many rallies since then. We had to go through Reopen Washington rallies, End All Mandate rallies. We marched around Seattle, thanks to Victoria, right at Pike Place Market in the past. And that was really a tremendous experience. It was so strange. I was just like, I'm trying to protect your rights, and we kept getting flipped off by people on the sidelines. Really strange. Yeah, and then we, even just, was it 2 years ago now, we had the Children's Health Defense Vaxxed bus come through on its second tour through the state, and we parked just over there on the diagonal, and we had legislator speeches and we gave interviews to vaccine-injured people. So vaccine injury is real, we proved it. I don't know how many legislators up there in these buildings actually know that vaccine injury is real. So today, again, is about participation. I really hope you were able to read our event page or understand the scope of what we have today. How many people scheduled a legislator meeting today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay. That's good. Those meetings, and I have one planned at 3:30 with I'd call him an unfriendly legislator in the 18th district. And it will be an interesting conversation, but at least I have an appointment at 3:30 or 3:45. So that I know we're probably going a little bit long in my assigned time, but we do have, I'm going to run you through the process a little bit. So it's still helpful if you could stick around afterwards and help us deliver the vaccines and the diseases they target. So that's a book by the Physicians for Informed Consent. This is fairly objective. We belabored the decision on which book to deliver. In 2023, we delivered Turtles All the Way Down. This we're going to deliver Physicians for Informed Consent targets and vaccines and the target diseases they target to all 140 legislators. We also have copies for the governor, for the AG Nick Brown, and for Chris Reichdahl, the OSPI. And so if anybody wants to take those deliveries, if you don't go to your legislative district or you finish your legislative district drops, we have those special. Governor Inslee's office is right over there. Oh, did I say Inslee still? Oh, yeah. I have a special place in my heart. I have a hard time praying for these guys, but I do. Inslee Jr. Ferguson is over here in this office now. And so we do have a cover letter that goes with this. And so if you need talking points, for these deliveries, the cover letter does cover just 5 bullets, highlights out of this book that you can use as your talking points. We can also talk about, don't we care about informed consent? And we certainly are seeing other states, including Idaho next door, remove all mandates. talk about ending politicization of vaccines is to end mandates and let these products sell themselves on their own merits with honest science. And that's pretty much the bottom line of what the letter says. And we would like to just get that conversation going. We think this information is objective. It's only 60 pages of words and then 26 pages of citations. And lots of easy charts to understand. We think this is meant for policymakers. This book is meant to be very high level just for policymakers if they're going to make any decisions on their vaccine policies. So at the end of the day, after the rest of our speakers go, and thank you, I see some legislators starting to show up. We had Rep. Engel come through just before, and I see Jim Walsh and John Lee just got out of caucus, so they can speak to us pretty soon. We have all of the legislator boxes by district with the books in them at the end. So that's how you can check them out with us. We want to make sure that we understand where the books are going to stay somewhat organized. And that's about it for me. I'm more of a logistics guy. So Victoria, take us away.
Awesome, thanks, Bob. Guess what, folks, let's get that book to all of our legislators. That is what they need. That's the information they need. Guess what that is? That's real science. That is actual science, right? All right, folks, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Amber King. She's a longtime grassroots organizer and founding member of multiple advocacy groups focused on food sovereignty, transparency, and personal freedom, including Moms Across America and March Against Monsanto Seattle. And she's a volunteer here with Informed Choice of Washington. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you. And I'm so sorry, our live stream is not going out, but it's being recorded. We will get it out to everybody as soon as this is over. So apologies on that end. But my name's Amber King, and I'm going to be spending the rest of my life trying to heal and repair the insane damage done by COVID to my children. It's also caused damage, of course, to our communities, our military operation. It was a global test, an unnecessary loss of life and liberty. The inherent freedoms that we lost during COVID must be restored in Washington State. What happens in Washington State, California, and New York states is vital policy testing grounds for the rest of this country. So what happens here today really matters. Pharmaceutical lobbying in the other Washington outnumber oil and gas 5-1 on Capitol Hill. We are fighting intense corruption at the highest levels and areas of our trusted institutions, science, health, education, media, and now policy. So how did I get here? Well, in 2004, I helped write the State of Alaska Nursing Manual when I worked in public health. In 2005, my first daughter was born, and I realized that all of the U.S. public health nurses were being trained by the likes of doctors still on TV regarded as authority today. We called him Offit for profit. In 2013, while visiting Washington, D.C., we were advocating for ending the DARK Act and GMO labeling in our food, ending pesticides in our rivers and skies as well. And I met Stephen Drucker, who wrote an amazing book. Oh, no. It is a little windy. He wrote an amazing book called Altered Genes, Twisted Truths, and it tells a cautionary tale of gain-of-function research and genetic engineering. And in 2016, I helped with the global push to ban gain-of-function research in the United States after losing five GMO labeling bills across the U.S., all to the 10th of the same percentage point, just magically. Magic voting, I call it. So I also want to thank Governor Ferguson today as AG for going after the Grocery Manufacturers Association. He exposed the intentional corruption and collusion and secured millions of dollars in fines for Washington State because of their actions. But I thought, this was way too easy. We just worked our tails off for years. We didn't get any of these state initiatives passed. But now they just magically are going to ban gain-of-function testing? I didn't trust it one bit, so I followed it every single step of the way. And you might have also seen that, I followed that work out of Wuhan. I followed Equal Health Alliance. I followed their contracts. I followed the University of Northern Carolina and Ralph Barrick's work because it was all closely linked, and I knew that something was amiss. So unfortunately, COVID, SARS, the bird flu scares were no surprise to me. I watched Event 201 and the World Health Policies, and I watched in Washington State in 2019 when a gubernatorial emergency powers act was voted into law in the fall of 2019. And I knew it was only a matter of time here in Washington State. We were going to be ground zero. So you also might have seen, that recently Bayer filed suit against Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson for patent infringement, because the Monsanto genetic engineering was being used in the COVID vaccines to this day. And so now they want their cut back. So my point is that politics is a participation sport in the United States, and you have some options. You can show up like you are here today with cash, or you can stay home and stay silent. And the last 40 years have not done us very well. So I encourage all of you to get active and stand up for your rights. Our founding fathers fought long and hard to secure these rights for us, and if we don't stand up for them, they will slowly erode. Across the country, states, institutions are quietly tightening enforcement as we finally get decent science at the federal level. They are opening up a dangerous, liable situation and will have lawyers foaming at the mouths to bring injury cases. So Olympia, I have a question for you. Are we fiscally solvent for that type of exposure in Washington State? You really got to ask yourself. And why now, Governor Ferguson? Are you now backing bills that undermine federal health policy when you've touted this for so long? Supporting the same corrupting influences that you once fought for. How are we supposed to understand that? Because we don't. And we're here today to talk about it. We could instead be supporting clean drinking water and infrastructure, stopping spraying our forests in Washington State with pesticides in the name of public education. If you really wanted to improve our health metrics. So it's really important that what you say here today matters. It's super vital that everybody gets active. Thank you all for showing up and make our voices heard. This is an important message. It's not going anywhere, and we have to keep standing the line here. Thank you so much.
Folks, let's hear it for Amber. And let's give her double applause, because you know what? She arranged the scarves and hand-dyed them all herself to match. So big round of applause for Amber King, you guys. Big help there. All right, folks, it is my honor to introduce our next guest speaker, Representative John Lee of Vancouver's 18th Legislative District. He's a leading advocate for medical freedom and parental rights, endorsed by Stand for Health Freedom. You guys, let's hear it for Rep. Lee.
Well, thank you, my friends. Thank you for the passion and the conviction you bring to this battle. I absolutely love it, and I'm inspired by all the work that you do. I'd like to first say thank you to Bob Runnells. He's been an unbelievable champion down in Clark County, especially on this issue. And I was delighted as the Clark County Republican State Committee man to work with Bob. And ultimately, I introduced a resolution to get the Washington State Republican Party to adopt this as the party's policy a couple years ago. And so we delightfully, with Jim as chairman, got this as the state party policy, and thank you. I'd also like to share part of my conviction on this in fighting for the unbelievably common sense, make an informed choice about your health and the health of your children and your loved ones. It shouldn't be anything other than common sense. Make an informed choice. And yet we have lived through the nightmare of the pandemic with government mandating so many horrible things that ruined or changed the lives of our people. I was privileged to be a reporter for an online newspaper, Clark County Today, during the pandemic. Delightfully, my editor said, "You can write stories on anything you want." So during the pandemic, I was able to write story after story after story of how the virus, of how the proposed treatments that later became mandated were impacting people. I was able to interview healthcare providers that reported numerous things that raised questions. I'm not sure this is the right thing. I was able to report on healthcare providers that are saying, I think alternate treatments and focusing on enhancing your body's natural immune system works best. And not to go too long, but as part of that, I did 3 unbelievably deep dives on the jabs, because there are 3 different companies proposing them, and my editor said, John, this is a term paper, this is not a news article. But I wanted people to understand how new and untested mRNA was as a technology in medicine. And I went down that. And then I wanted them to understand what a viral vector was and wasn't, and ramifications for that. And so I wrote stories about it to inform people, and it was amazing the responses that we got. And of course, people asked more and more questions, as you should. If you don't understand, ask more questions. But I will wrap up by saying I sat through 2 days of hearings at the FDA when they were considering removing the emergency use authorization for the jab. And it was just one of them at the time. And you would think, to get the highest levels of our government, to get to the highest levels of our best and brightest health experts, you would have pretty close to unanimity in this is what the federal government is about to bless for the health of our citizens. I have never heard so many legitimate healthcare professionals say, I can't answer these questions, and my hospital staff is asking them, and I can't give them an honest answer about numerous issues related to this particular quote-unquote solution as a vaccine. Can you give me the answers to these questions before we vote and say, yes, this is good for the general population? Other healthcare professionals around our nation came back and said, these are all the negative consequences I am seeing early on as a result of administering these vaccines. I don't have enough historical evidence to say, is this an actual negative consequence of the vaccine? Because we only began administering them a short time ago. But for what I know right now, it's a red flag that says do not take it off of EUA rules and procedures. And yet, with rough wag, half of the experts that testified at the federal level objected to it, and yet the government crammed it through, and it became national policy in the sales job of forcing Americans to take these jabs. And of course, then we saw that recommendation being utilized by healthcare authorities all over our country, especially in Washington state, forcing people to take an untested, unproven vaccine. Take your pick of which poison you want.
Yeah. Wow.
I probably shouldn't say that, but it's untested, and take your pick, or you will be fired, or you can't do your job, or you can't go to work. So many negative ramifications that harmed people in so many different aspects. And the other sad part of it was an awful lot of the mainstream media did not go out and interview the people I interviewed, did not go out and ask the questions I asked, and did not let the people know that there are an awful lot of unanswered questions that you should know before taking these. So I just want to say thank you for your passion in bringing this issue to the citizens of our state and informing the legislators God bless you all for what you're doing.
Thank you, Ripley. It's great to have people like Ripley in there representing us, folks. So thank you for speaking today. All right, you guys, it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker. Dr. Anik St-Martin is a chiropractor who has practiced in Longview, Washington for more than 25 years alongside her husband, Darren Shook. For over 2 decades, Anik has also been trusted community educator, regularly presenting lectures on vaccines and public health policy, most importantly to large audiences. Dr. Anik is here today to speak to us and share her experience. Thank you, thank you. Let's give her a warm round of applause.
Thank you, it's an honor to be here. I've been entrenched in the vaccine conversation for 25 years, and I've been privy to it from a few different perspectives. Personally, with my own body, as a parent, making carefully calculated, informed vaccine choices for my children, and as a doctor of chiropractic in practice for 25 years, specializing in pediatric and pregnancy-specific chiropractic. I've worked with families who felt ostracized for making health freedom choices, and families who've regretted the decisions to vaccinate, and families who've been diligent about maintaining their relationship with the vaccine schedule. And I love and respect them all. And through these 25 years, I've never forgotten where I come from. I was 17 years old the first time I ever considered that a person may choose to not be vaccinated. It was in the midst of a meningitis outbreak in my hometown of Ottawa, Canada. And my new boyfriend at the time, I was in my first year of college, had a sister who was in high school, and sitting at dinner one night thinking that I was making relevant conversation and being sort of caught up in the drama of an outbreak, I asked her if she had gotten her meningitis vaccine. And she said to me, no, I haven't, and I won't be, and actually I'm not vaccinated at all. And that, when she said that, I was sort of dumbfounded. It shook my belief system and kind of had me, do a double take in the idea that you could do that, you could choose to not be vaccinated, that wasn't it your civic duty to be vaccinated? Isn't it something that everybody did? I was a fully vaccinated child, which for me, born in 1975, meant 7 vaccines. When I was in grade school, my home suffered an entire whole house fire. And being that back then our vaccine documents were on paper, everything was lost. So by the time I finished my undergraduate studies and I got my bachelor's degree, I began graduate school for chiropractic in New York State. And in order to matriculate in the United States, I had to obtain a student visa. Sorry, excuse me. And in order to obtain the student visa, I had to show proof of vaccination. Well, because my vaccine proof didn't exist, it had gone out and spoke, I had to have a doctor's visit where I was caught up for all vaccinations in one sitting. I simply didn't know because nobody told me. And back then, these conversations were very clandestine in nature, in the hush-hush variety, right? People didn't talk about these things. Within approximately 2 months, I started having moderate to severe psoriasis scattered on the skin of my entire body. The doctors and dermatologists I saw never asked me once if I'd received a vaccine. Instead, they never asked me about the root cause, they never looked for it, they simply offered me enough steroids and lotions and potions for a course in order to try to handle my problem from the outside in. It was around this time that I met the man of my dreams, my husband Darren, who happened to be a New Yorker. When we got married a few years later, in order to get my green card, we had to go through an interview process and a medical examination where, before we could ask any questions or advocate for ourselves, I was entirely vaccinated again. We probably should have known better. We certainly were very uncomfortable with the situation. But we were young, and the process was one where everything was simply implied and imposed upon without due process of informed consent. Within weeks, I was in an autoimmune crisis, one which took me close to 15 years to heal completely. It was during this time that I became informed. And like most of us who peel back the smoke and mirrors of the vaccine science and the steadfast belief systems around vaccination, I began to find out that autoimmunity and psoriasis are documented as per the vaccine inserts, side effects of vaccination. And that autoimmunity, in fact, is a written contraindication to vaccination. And when I shared my story over and over again, just like all other vaccine injury stories, it was chalked up as anecdotal and unrelated to what the science showed. In a word, it was invalidated. When we had our kids, Darren and I knew we wouldn't vaccinate because of the risk of the autoimmunity link, familial connection. This wasn't a risk we were willing to take. Our decision was made from hundreds of hours of studying, reading, and attending health conferences where this conversation was actually encouraged. It was allowed. It was made, like most parents who choose not to vaccinate, not out of carelessness, negligence, but out of trust, education, information, and the commitment to uphold optimal health with our lifestyle choices, with nutrition and sunshine and early bedtimes and limited screen time, and through the upholding of a strong nervous system. I loved that it wasn't complicated. It was a return to nature and a return to a trust in the immune system and the body's ability to adapt as our measure of health. Our kids still take no drugs and have no chronic illnesses, but this also is anecdotal. Over the past 25 years, I've worked with thousands of babies and kids, and I've had many, many mothers come to me crying and devastated that they didn't listen to the bad feeling they had in the pit of their stomach walking into a well baby check, knowing that it didn't feel right and panicking, as every mom would, that their child had a clear vaccine reaction. From losing speech, to losing the ability to walk, to projectile vomiting, to turning blue, to having lifelong seizures, to dying. All to be told in the following days that these terrible health conditions couldn't possibly be related to our safe and effective vaccines they'd received because the science is sound. I've often been baffled at the fact that if I've seen this over and over again with the families I work with, the pediatricians must be seeing it tenfold. But this again is anecdotal. I've been told by the state of Washington that I can't have these conversations with my community and with the families I work with, unless it's in the support of vaccinations. For 25 years, I've known that I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I didn't tell the truth, if I didn't share the things which seem so obvious and so contradictory. After all, to me, the right to choose what you do and what you don't do with your body has always been a purely basic premise. Our practice stayed open through COVID, and when the state of Washington required that we ask our employees and our patients, including the toddlers of our practice, to wear masks or be refused service, be refused employment, be refused health care, and when the state of Washington wanted us to require our employees to be vaccinated, with an mRNA technology we knew nothing about, we had to draw a hard line in the sand. Excuse me, I take my blower off. We couldn't compromise our integrity, body sovereignty, or innate selves out of fear and turn around and look our boys in the eyes at the same time. We doubled down for our kids and for our community. After all, constitutionally, you can't make somebody eat an apple. You can't make somebody drink a glass of water. But body autonomy can be compromised by the government or anyone else for that matter, in the case of a mandate or an executive order. If we want the right to go to school or remain employed, that is. That's unclear, it's disrespectful, and it's unconstitutional. Yes. This is why the current companion bills, Senate Bill 5967 and House Bill 2242, which would allow Washington State to recommend vaccines out of sync from federal guidance, Bringing recommendations to the state level based on sources at the state's own discretion is the epitome of slippery slopes. Bills 5967 and 2242 have been brought forward to allow for greater state executive power for mandates and orders. Anything that sounds like blurred language and word salads when it comes to health freedom should be a red flag. Body sovereignty, by definition, holds that each person has the right to full control of their body. Our bodies are precisely the one and only thing that we truly own. And forcing change on another person's body through coercion, shame, force, through the dangling of the right to an education or employment is a violation. Threatening the removal of employment, disallowing loved ones to see each other, denying the right to an education unless body alterations are made is a violation, regardless of how the story is spun. Are there exceptions to body autonomy? How wide is the line between you and I? RFK Jr., whom I've had the privilege of following and being in the room with many times and for several years, is bringing light to the truth about the science. Woo! The truth, for example, that no vaccine on the childhood schedule was studied using a true placebo-controlled trial. The truth that some vaccines, like hepatitis B, according to the actual vaccine insert, had a clinical trial of only 4 days. And the truth that the HPV vaccine has levels of aluminum exponentially higher than that deemed safe by the EPA is unfathomable. It's irresponsible. It's unbelievable. Which is why so many make the assumption that people like you and I are crazy. But no. I assure you, we're not crazy. We're educated. What's crazy is that such a poor standard has gone so unchecked for so many years. What's crazy is that vaccine manufacturers are shielded from liability. If you think about it, the safety of vaccines and the ethics of mandation are actually two very different points of conversation. Even if we had a vaccine or vaccines which were deemed 100% truly safe and effective, and if we change the vaccine program to make it safer and more effective, it's entirely unrelated to the legality of mandation. The real question is whether it's acceptable at any time under any circumstance to allow the government to dictate what goes on or in our bodies. Yeah. Even if a vaccine were the holy grail, even if it was more natural than water, body autonomy maintains its unwavering presence. We should still have the right to refuse. Taking care of our children and of ourselves how we see fit is a right, not a privilege. And shared decision-making and trusting parents to make the best decision for their children is not extremism. The West Coast Health Alliance was formed in September by the government of Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii, out of deliberate derision of the MAHA movement, a movement which is asking state officials to listen to the parents pleading for better science, more transparency, and accountability. This one-size-fits-all approach to vaccination has long overstayed its welcome. We know, based on science, that we don't all methylate or adapt to heavy metals or toxins the same way. And we know that not everyone responds the same way to being vaccinated. A child who has a genetic mutation which interferes with methylation, who was a premature baby, who's had several doses of antibiotics, whose immune system is engaged at the time of vaccination, is likely to respond very differently than another child. To assume that they're the same is antiquated and inaccurate thinking. In the 2011 case of Bosowitz versus Wyeth, the US Supreme Court stated that vaccines were, quote, unavoidably unsafe. Therefore, if there's a risk, there must be a choice. Sorry. It'd be better if I did it on my phone.
It's okay, I'm a paper person myself.
This is why informed consent is legally and ethically required every single time. According to the American Medical Association, informed consent to medical treatment is fundamental both in ethics and law. Patients have the right to receive information, ask questions, and recommend treatments so that they can make well-considered decisions about their care. By definition, it supports shared decision-making. And according to the NIH, coercion directly opposes informed consent, and true informed consent requires voluntary decision-making. Voluntary decisions free from duress, force, manipulation, ensuring respect for autonomy. I hope we can all agree that vaccinations are a medical preparation. Therefore, they must require an informed consent, and the entire point of informed consent is the freedom to make a decision based on one's individual assessment as to whether this is congruent for them individually. For these reasons, please support Senate Bill 5783, which ensures a person's vaccination status cannot be used to influence decisions about guardianship, parental rights, visitation, and adoption. To judge a person's personal vaccination status anywhere near a court of law is in direct conflict to the definition of informed consent and shared decision-making, and removing coercion from the language of the state and the language of the courts is the natural order. Now, the West Coast Health Alliance claims to continue to ensure mandated schedules. Even if these oppose federal guidance, it claims to be grounded in science, efficacy, transparency, access, and trust. Exactly. Can we please revisit the science? The very definition of science is the systematic study through observation, experimentation, and the testing of theories against the evidence obtained. In other words,
that last part again.
Yeah.
against the evidence obtained. Therefore, you look, and then you look again, and when you think you know, you look, and then you ask again. Finally, to the people on the fringe, to the warriors, to the ones who are still free thinkers, to the ones who know they're here now for a purpose, to those who are unabashedly showing who they are and standing up for what they believe in. The world is watching, and we have to hold the line because the most important people watching are our kids. The truth is void of contradictions. This is why the truth, by very nature of what it is, always prevails. To all of you who feel like the lone wolves, trust your gut. Trust what you know feels right. Look at yourself in the mirror and stand tall because you are changing the world. The house of cards is falling down. The tipping point has been reached and this conversation is no longer fringe. Let yourselves be heard. Gone are the days when we're marginalized and invalidated because the truth is here and it always has been. The path that leads to the full expression of who we are may be unmapped, but its existence is being realized in real time right now. I never thought I would stand witness to change and conversations that we're seeing right now in my lifetime. The Maha movement was created by people like us because we know there's a better way, and deep down, so does everyone else. But we can't sleep at the wheel. The momentum is real and this freight train of truth is coming, but we'll only get here if we continue to stand up for the self-governance of our health and the freedom to choose. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. St-Martin. You guys, let's hear it again for Dr. St-Martin. We know how rare it is and how brave for a health practitioner to speak out, and you're a treasure to have in our state. Thank you.
Go ahead. I can't say much more than has already been so ably said. I will say that my husband and I began having kiddos in the early 80s. And at that time, I don't know if we all remember, but there wasn't any internet. And we were being asked to do all these vaccinations and things. And I was going to the Tacoma Public Library to research that. And so we made some mistakes. Later on in my kids' lives, we gave them all the varicella vaccine. We tried to go to, the parties to get the disease, and they didn't get it, so we gave them all the varicella vaccine. Well, I've got kids in their 30s coming down with shingles. So my grandkids are doing better. We have the internet. We have more information. We always knew some things. We knew sugar was bad. We knew we didn't want fluoride in our water, but it's been an evolution for us. So I appreciate greatly all that you're doing. And I really appreciate the internet and the fact that we've got the freedom to figure this out. And so I was excited about the MAHA movement. I mean, one of my kids got the hat, you know, it was great. So I appreciate all that. One of the things that I don't hear mentioned too often, when you're thinking about healthcare that's a little outside of the norm, we incentivize medical practitioners with our Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement rates to join up with hospitals because the rates are better. We got to stop that. We need practitioners who are able to be independent thinkers. And so that's one thing I did want to say. So I believe in medical freedom. I believe that what I put in my body is my choice. And I appreciate all that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, folks, it is now my pleasure to introduce Representative Jim Walsh. He is a superstar in the Republican Party. Not only is he a representative from the 19th District in Aberdeen, but he is the chair of the state GOP. Welcome, Jim Walsh.
On the carpet, all right.
On the carpet.
First thing you learn inside this building is you go where you're told to go, right? So be of good cheer. Remember, a few years ago, when I was locked out of the Capitol because I would not show my papers, that all fell away very quickly. The video went viral, of course, but the important lesson from that is we won. The rule that they were trying to enforce to say that members couldn't go into the building unless they provided shot paperwork failed. They backed off right away. It was easy to do. The right thing is easy to do. It's just not simple. It can be complicated, it can be difficult, it can take a long time. And we're seeing it inside this building again. The current governor in his State of the State speech railed against RFK Jr., railed against, he's trying to frame it as the Centers for Disease Control, but his real complaint is with the scientific method. They don't like skepticism. They don't like constant questioning of premises. They don't believe in science, even though they use the word. What they believe in is scientism. An ideological path to control that uses the clothes of science to advance unscientific ends. A lot of people want to talk about Big Pharma, that they're the bad actors in this. I actually don't believe they are. They are an industry, they do what they do. The bad actors are those who would control your life. And they're merely using pharmaceuticals as one of several excuses to tell you what to do with your body, what to do with your mind, what to do with your property. And it's not just a matter of being a free thinker, although you have to be, not just today, but in life always. It's a matter of what you must do as a free person. Freedom isn't about all benefit. Freedom is a duty. And freedom is a duty on all of us to defend our bodies, our property, and our minds. The key to informed consent is informed. And that is frightening to those who would control you. But fight for it, stand for it, be difficult, when there would be easier paths. And these are the ways that we not only protect ourselves, we protect our children, our grandchildren, and we protect people we don't even know. One of the greatest things about that viral video is people come up to me today, whom I've never met, I never knew, they're not from around here. And they say, I saw the video, I saw you weren't going to provide papers, and that gave me courage to do it in my way, in my life, in a small way. And there are no small ways. Freedom and the Republican form of government that we want is like chainmail armor. We're all a piece of the armor. We're all a piece of the protection. So keep showing up, keep being difficult, and keep being informed. God bless you all.
Thank you, Jim. Let's hear it for Jim Walsh, you guys. Wow, what a superstar. You guys, we got to give these Republicans some love. They don't get a lot of it in there, so let's hear it. Let's hear it for all our representatives today. Thanks, you guys. All right, it's my pleasure to introduce our next representative, Representative Matt Marshall from Legislative District 2. Rep. Marshall is not only a previous school board member, but he was a physician's assistant with a law degree, so he knows what he's talking about. Let's hear it.
Thank you. Well, the introduction helped out there a little bit. How I typically enter is viral videos, what people believe versus what is truth. The viral video that goes around with me is one that I actually like. I have a copy of it, I have a copy of a screenshot of it in my office. And it's a picture of me right over here next to the fountain in front of thousands of people upset about the lockdowns from COVID. And I'm wearing a tricorn hat. I'm wearing blue gloves, a Hawaiian shirt, and I've got hand sanitizer in my pocket. And that's been used to try to discredit me as not serious. What they have ignored is that I have worked in medicine now for 24 years. I started as an EMT, joined the military, and became a lab tech. I worked in immunohematology at William Beaumont Army Medical Center. So that is how the immune system reacts to stimuli. That is the antibody-antigen reactions. I have a little bit of experience there when I talk about the responses of our public health and how they reacted during COVID. I also have a little bit of understanding as to what is actually necessary when it comes to vaccines. I disagree with all of the guidance that they give. I now practice medicine, and something that I noticed during COVID and what made me start speaking out more about the injustices within our healthcare or sick care system in the United States is that my opinion medically did not matter. What mattered was what the governor with no medical training mandated with a pen and the four corners continued to allow during shutdowns. I saw when my own family's livelihood was threatened because I opposed an experimental vaccine. An experimental vaccine that was quickly mandated by the same people that were rejecting it as absurd when it was proposed by President Donald Trump. I find that ironic still. My role as a medical provider now is to sit with my patients when they have any sort of ailment or condition, evaluate them, come up with at least a functional diagnosis or a differential diagnosis, and then discuss the options with my patients. The options always start with option one: we can do nothing. That is something that is so frequently omitted by medical providers. There is always the option to not do anything, and here are the risks and benefits of it. But then option 2, 3, 4, and 5 are a shared conversation with the patient to come up with what works for them and allow them to take time, allow them to do their own research, and be present for a shared discussion of what we do next. That is not how our healthcare system works today. And it's saddening. We have come a long way, as Jim talked about. We have won the hearts and minds of many people. This is not and should not be a partisan issue of having freedom of choice of what is done to your body. So, as we go through this legislative session, I want you all to know that your voices are heard. And when it comes to any of the new mandates that come out, there needs to, one, be no new mandates. But two, if they're going to make recommendations, they need to stay as recommendations. This Western Healthcare Alliance, if they want to make recommendations that's different than the CDC, let them, but keep it at recommendation. All right? No more of blocking people out of society because they refuse to do what is recommended. We were all told, nobody's being forced to get the vaccine. But you can't go to a restaurant, you can't go in public, you can't go to a sports game, you can't keep your job, your kids can't go to school, you can't go to the grocery store. Okay, so how is that a choice? So, I thank you all for showing up here, and I want you to know that I will continue to fight for your right to choose.
Let's hear it for Matt Marshall, you guys. Wow, it is so encouraging to have people like him in there speaking for us, standing up for our rights. All right, it's now my pleasure. I'm going to introduce Senator Jeff Wilson from the 19th LD. He is a big supporter of informed choice of Washington, you guys. Thank you, Senator Wilson, for showing up.
Thank you, everybody. Listen, let's start out with what we already know. We know that mandates are the lowest form of law possible in the Washington state, and we're better than that. So better that I was a proud sponsor of Senate Bill 5783, which talks about parents and their guardianship issues in court. Since when should the court value or measure your status of your vaccination takings and whatnot? Because, quite frankly, the court would be disrespecting, in my view, the ability for us to make those informed decisions. Consent is what matters because it's your permission for what to do with you, your family. And above all, that's what makes me a big fan of this group. I mean, for you that are taking the time to continue the fight, I just wanted you to know that my presence in the Senate, I too will continue with that fight with you and walk every step of the way. We're old enough, we're smart enough, the government is not us, we are the government, and they work for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Wilson. We really appreciate that. All right, you guys, one more round of applause for all our Republican House reps and Senate members. Thank you guys for being in there and speaking for freedom and health choice. We really appreciate it. All right. We are pleased to have a few more speakers today, so thank you for sticking it out here. It is my pleasure to introduce Kerry French. She is a friend and a freedom fighter that I know from King County up there. She's a native of Washington State and a 20-year U.S. Navy veteran who has remained deeply involved in community service, and she's going to speak for us today. Thank you, Kerry, for going.
Thank you. So some of you know me. I am a thorn in the side of the tyrants, and some people love me and some people don't. But that's all right, because I always want to stand up for freedom in this state. Like she said, I was born and raised in Washington State. I love this state. It's beautiful. I don't like the politics. I spent 20 years in the Navy, and I literally walked through a gauntlet of air guns shooting me up with I don't even know what, because they didn't tell us. They don't do the air guns anymore, but in boot camp I got every vaccine under the sun. During the Gulf War, I was vaccine injured, and now I have a lifelong autoimmune injury. Thank you very much, Uncle Sam. But in 1999, after many years of trying to have a baby, I finally got pregnant at the age of 42. Unfortunately, I went into preterm labor, and my daughter, Cassandra, was born at 1 pound, 5 ounces. She was about the size of a Cornish game hen, so she was really tiny. After about 4.5 months in the neonatal intensive care unit, we were getting ready to take her home. She had passed all of her tests. They do an apnea and bradycardia test. She passed her car seat test. She was gaining weight. She had recognition of mommy and daddy. And one day I came in and the nurse says, "Oh, Cassie got all her vaccines today." And I said, pretty sure I told you I wanted to know everything that was going on with her. So they didn't even give me a choice. This was at Naval Medical Center, San Diego. So be very wary of government health care. You get what you pay for. So they gave her all of her vaccines at 4.5 months, 4.5 pounds, without my knowledge or consent. After that, the next 2 weeks, I watched my daughter take a nosedive. She started having seizures. I went in one day and put my hand on her back, and she was burning up. And the nurse tried to dismiss it, saying, "Oh, that's just because she's under the oxygen hood." And I said, "No, this is too hot." So I took her temperature, and I took it out to the nurses. And within about 5 seconds, the whole medical team rushed back in. Like, we were getting ready to go home, remember? We started making all the arrangements. And now she was back on the ventilator, and I started bawling because I knew that was a huge step backwards. So over those next 2 weeks on the ventilator, I watched her body fight as she developed hydrocephaly. She lost brain function, she lost her eyesight, she lost her hearing, and her kidneys started pumping out blood. She had a catheter bag that was blood red, and I kind of knew what that was, but I still asked, "What is that?" And they said, "That's what her kidneys are putting out." And I knew she was dying right in front of my eyes. So we made the decision to let her go on December 30th in 1999. My soul was ripped out of my body. As I held my daughter, as her little cute face, she really did look like the Gerber baby, turned purple and her lips turned black as she suffocated. And this is because the government, the Navy, made the decision to shoot her up with all her vaccines on the same day without the parents' knowledge or consent. I would have never consented to that, because although at the time I wasn't necessarily anti-vax, I know that she was 4.5 pounds, and I know that she was premature, and she was not going into daycare. And I would have wanted her to wait. I would want them to wait till she had a little more weight on her and do one at a time and wait for the incubation period. They did not give me that choice. So my life would never be the same. The child that I prayed for and hoped for and wanted more than anything was now dead because the government made that decision for me. It wasn't until I got her medical records that I found the forms that told me what she had been given, and it was a long list. I was shocked when I found it. And there were 2 columns, one that said the parent had been counseled, and the other, the parent had given consent, and they were all blank. And because of the fairies doctrine, I don't get to sue. And even if I could sue, all the money in the world would not replace my daughter. So the bottom line is we do not co-parent with the government. Medical decisions, and really any decisions about our children, are parents' rights, not these people's rights. So there's a group of people in here who want to take away your rights. And they even want to expand their power to get their corrupt, wicked claws into your family. Not these people. I like these people over here. These guys are fighting for us. So I hope that you vote those people out. I hope that you're registered to vote. And I hope that you get your friends and family to register to vote. Attend these health board meetings if you can. Let other people know what's going on. Go to leg.wa.gov to find out what bills are being introduced, and make sure you email them, call them, and go meet with them. I hope you made your appointments. I'm actually going to go and meet with mine. During COVID, before COVID, I got my degree in forensics. And so I did a lot of science courses. And when the COVID hysteria came out, and they were talking about wearing a paper mask, I said, pretty sure viruses are tiny. They'll get right through that mask like a chain link fence trying to keep a mosquito out, right? And I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And some of the things they were talking about didn't make any sense to me. So I started reading scientific papers. I started reading what they had. I started listening to other voices. But I gotta tell you, when I saw people like Stephen Colbert or who is it, Jimmy Kimmel, or whoever those idiots are, singing songs about the vaccine, singing songs about, I'm like, this is wild. This is like propaganda. So I really started questioning. And when Jay Inslee said that we couldn't have Thanksgiving with our family, I said, excuse me, I live in America and we are free. So me and about 70 of my friends went to Jay Inslee's house and had a Thanksgiving buffet in front of his house. And then when they said we couldn't do Christmas caroling, I said, oh, hell no. So I organized a Christmas caroling caravan from Everett to Olympia, where we had a Christmas service. We stopped at every park and ride. We had a Santa Claus. We gave out cocoa and stuff for the kids and let them sit on Santa's lap and say Christmas carols. I am not joking when I say I am a thorn in their side, and I will be till the day I die because I value freedom. And it's ironic to me that all these people out here screeching no kings are absolutely acting like little kings when it comes to vaccines. My body, my choice, right? I guess that only works for one area, because they sure don't mean it when it comes to the vaccines, does it? They really tried to make our lives hell. I didn't comply. Neither did my family. We didn't take any of the vaccines. And I said, hey, if I don't ever get to travel again, then so be it. I am not taking something into my body that I don't feel has been tested. I know what mRNA is, and I know what mRNA does. It changes your DNA. It's messenger RNA. So I hope that you've made your appointments. And I just want to remind you that first, they ignore you. Then they ridicule you. We've all been through that, right? And then they attack you. And we've been through that too. And then you win. So don't give up. Thank you for your time. Don't let my story become your story. Know what you are putting into your body and fight for your rights, because they are not theirs to own. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you for sharing that story. We don't want to forget the victims of this, of a violation of informed consent. So thank you for sharing. All right, folks, it is my pleasure to introduce our final speaker. Bill Sullivan is the co-founder of Truth and Accountability Project Washington, a grassroots organization supporting those harmed by the COVID response. He is a former U.S. Navy captain. After 25 years of service, he was forced to retire in 2021 after challenging the mandates. Let's welcome Bill Sullivan.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I had a speech written, but as we say, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So no, just plans change. So I'm going to keep this relatively brief. But given the crowd that we got, I want to just maybe at the end just list off a few ideas of things that maybe we can take back home for homework, maybe inspire some activity on your end aside from what you're doing. First, I got to say. Informed Choice Washington's been a huge friend to me on a couple fronts. For one is, I am duly unqualified to be speaking to you today, to have been a 3.5 year member of a Board of Health, and to be in some of the opportunities I've had. I have a 10th grade biology education. I do not have necessarily medical qualifications, but I do have a master's degree in common sense and a lot of life experience, and it's proving out that that's worth more than prowess in aptitude in organic chemistry. It's worth more than doing well on the MCAT, right? Common sense is what we need. We need people that can look down the road to understand second and third order effects of policies and directives that are going to impact people in the community. So I did get kicked out of the Navy for refusing COVID vaccine. I was actually 25 years of active and reserve service, and I was commanding officer of a unit, and they took us out first. They wanted to cut the head off the snake before the contagion of dissent spread throughout the ranks. And so I was out in a very chaotic circumstance out of the Navy after 25 years with it well inside of a month. They did say they were going to take away my retirement. I got some people involved to stop that, but they did take away my GI Bill benefits for my kids and things of that nature. That's that. 10% of my unit left. It just so happens they were the best people in the unit, as you can imagine, and Navy's lost. Unfortunately, Kerry's story at the Navy is not uncommon. I have had more shots than you can shake a stick at. I have had everything. I've been out of the Navy 4 years. I haven't had my flu shot or one injection in 4 years. I've never been more healthy in my life. And when I first started this, Bernadette Pager, good friend of everybody here, she had asked me one time, is it just about the COVID vaccine, or have you thought about the entire childhood vaccine schedule? And I said, what are you talking about? I'm just worried about the COVID vaccine, one thing at a time. Well, I'll tell you what, I dropped the moratorium in my family, and there are no more vaccines going to be going on in my family from here on out. So I did have the opportunity to join a local board of health. As you know, the legislature passed a law, coincidentally, in 2021, to reduce the number of elected officials on a board of health by half and replace them with unaccountable appointed officials. I happen to be one of the, it kind of backfired with me. They weren't looking for somebody like me, but they had to put up with me for 3.5 years. And I just want to go through very quickly some of my legislative endeavors. My effort to stop the childhood COVID vaccine failed 9-1. My effort to improve the public health emergency response failed 9-1. My effort to review the informed consent documents that we provide to the public for the COVID vaccines failed 10-1. And when I complained about that by showing them that their documents do not contain questions and screening for contraindications and precautions, they, by a margin of 8-1, they banned all discussion of COVID vaccines, COVID vaccine safety, and COVID for the rest of the year. So, needless to say, with the help of Informed Choice Washington and a group that I helped co-found, Truth and Accountability Project Washington, which has been very much befriended by Informed Choice Washington, and we have made a difference in Wenatchee and Chelan and Douglas County out there. We've held a couple high-profile events and really brought a lot of awareness to the community. We have provided over 10 hours and 200 3-minute live public comments to the board, in addition to 3,500 or so peer-reviewed studies. And the board still has voted no on every opportunity. So, needless to say, what have I learned? One is I won't be in that building anytime soon with a voting record like that. Two is your local Board of Health is not local. 94% of their funding comes from the State Department of Health. They are minions of the state, and they are given basically the local cover for the State Department of Health. They have no power to, well, they are unwilling to exercise their power lest they lose their public funding. Second thing is public health has lost its way, period. It's off mission. Core mission, clean water, sanitation, clean food, and ours, for example, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on an EPA environmental justice grant to hire a climate change coordinator to pass out box fans for wildfire smoke. We are off mission. We are in trouble down there with public health. And the last thing, of course, is that they've broken trust. And they've broken trust with the public. I did not give public health much of a thought before the pandemic, and I'll tell you what, my opinion of the entire endeavor, aside from the core missions that I mentioned, is relatively low. So what can we do about this? Well, one is just make sure that we're attending public Board of Health meetings. Attend your local Board of Health meetings. You will be as shocked as I was at what goes on down there. Second is make sure that you speak. Thank you to Lisa Templeton for speaking at, I believe, almost every Chelan Douglas Board of Health meeting over a 3.5-year period. Submit documentation by email or in person. Studies, just rip a link off of your favorite, Highwire website or CHD and send it to them. Take away their plausible deniability. There will be accountability at some point. If not legal, it will come in the form of political accountability. A lot of these people are ladder climbers and they have dreams and aspirations. And I'm here to tell you, I mapped out the human environment and terrain in my area of responsibility. Try not to talk like that. In my neighborhood. And I know who's who now. I smoked the bad guys out. I smoked the woke ones out. I smoked the ineffective, weak Republicans out. And I'm going to do my level best to make sure that they never achieve a higher office again. Woo! A couple other things and I'll close just to consider. Of course, consider joining the health board. If I did it, you can do it. Second is we submitted Tappawa submitted a notice of liability to our health board. Basically, it said this: because you have endured all of this information for all these years and caused all these harms, you do not have plausible deniability going into the future. We've taken that away from you. And then lastly is vaccine injuries are one of 100 statutorily required notifiable conditions to State Department of Health. So I would recommend everybody that has a loved one that knows or suspects they've been vaccine injured by the COVID vaccine or any vaccine, file a form and a report with your local health jurisdiction, and they will be compelled to act on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you, Bill. And great advice, you guys. If you want to know how to join a board, you can just look it up yourself or connect with your local Republican Party. We can help you. We can help you get active.
Thanks for the masks for the next pandemic.
No, we like to breathe freely here. Folks, I want to let's thank all of our speakers for being here to speak truth and stand up for freedom. But we all know it's not enough. It's up to you, each person that showed up here, to take that message into our legislators. So the next round of today's event is going to be encouraging each one of you to come up and get a packet of those science-based booklets to take to your legislators, or get them to them somehow. So thank you all for coming here in the middle of January on a weekday, you guys. Let's hear it for all of you. And to Informed Choice for organizing this, Lisa, Bob, all you guys, Katie. Thank you, I appreciate it. All you guys. All right, come on up. We'll be here, we'll be sitting here all afternoon. Do you want to say something, Bob?
Snacks. Right, so just to finish too, we'll bring this table out a little further so we can gather around it. For anybody who's going to do this, it'll be great if you can drop these off at the legislators' offices. We've got snacks and drinks if you want to just, take a break for a moment and wait, because it will be a little bit of a process. I want to get names and phone numbers as you check the books out. I've got campus maps, I've got a letter that you can read to get some talking points, and let's do this. Thank you.